Imagine doing a subject to transaction, buying a house subject to the existing financing, and then leasing that property out to someone else to rent to own, like a lease to own, like a lease option. And they pay for a little while, you get the option consideration money, and then all of a sudden they stop paying and you go to do an eviction, okay? All that's kind of like normal. I've done that. I think a lot of people have done that, or if you've at least heard about it if you haven't done it. And that's where this story with Melissa kind of takes a little bit of a twist. Guys, we are in North Carolina. What town are we in?
Catawba County.
We're in Catawba
Hickory,
County,
North Carolina.
Hickory, North Carolina. This is just outside of Charlotte, maybe by 30 minutes or so.
Right.
30 minutes west of Charlotte. And Melissa has found herself in a situation where she couldn't get the tenant out. She's gone to court. They're not getting the tenant out. And it's actually like a little bit of a twist. Now, you were put in jail recently as well. So I'd love for you to kind of take us from the very beginning. How did you even get this property? How did you take us from the very beginning?
So we focus on foreclosures and helping people save their credit, obviously, and saving their houses from going to foreclosure. So we tracked down the couple that owned this house. They were thankful that their credit was going to be saved and they weren't going to experience the foreclosure and the ongoing stresses of that. We solved it for them. This buyer then contacted us, the lease option tenant, who I'm in a struggle with now, and we were able to provide her the chance of owning a home despite the fact that she wasn't able to get approved through a bank, right? She had a good enough down payment. It wasn't what we were asking for, but we worked with her and her family. She's a local business owner herself. She owns a nail salon downtown Hickory. And I really believed in her. I really thought that we could help her, and that this would be a good transaction for everybody involved: the sellers, myself, my team, my family, and her family. A year went by, and everything went great. She paid on time. She doesn't hear from us. We don't hear from her. Then her lease option came up due, and we get an email. My staff gets an email stating that her husband had to be moved or had to go back to Mexico, and that she was not able to pay off the loan. So I gave her two options, whether moving into an owner finance or extending her lease option. I wasn't here to try to take her money from her. It didn't hurt me to offer her another year for her to find bank financing. It was fine. It did keep me from, receiving probably $30,000, $40,000 in equity, but I put my gains on the back end so that she wouldn't lose her home. And that was the last payment that we got from her.
How long ago was that?
About 3 years ago.
This has been going on for 4 years.
Yep. So she lived there perfectly fine for a year, and then this has been going on for about 3 years.
Meanwhile, Melissa, you've been paying the mortgage because it was a subject to.
That's right.
And how much is the mortgage about?
About $1,400 a month.
And you received rent for the first year.
Yes.
But for 3 years now, you've been paying the mortgage.
That's right.
And so that's not only cost you, but now you're sitting here talking about, let's talk about the attorneys for a second, because the first attorney you hired, out of many, you were trying to do an eviction.
That's right.
It got delayed for whatever reason, we can speculate, but it got delayed by many months. And you finally went to court and you were told that it was not, you were in the wrong court. Kind of take me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So after several attempts and several different attorneys who would continue to take my money and leave files sitting on their desk and not do what they were hired to do, I found another attorney. This would be the third or fourth eviction attorney that I've hired for this. And she actually is trying. I will not say that she's being timely about her efforts, but she is at least trying. We were able to hire her for 3 evictions. She was able to get one person out easily. Same process setup as this, different county. No problem, was able to get her evicted. This one, we get to court. They tell us that this case cannot be heard in small claims court, that it has to go to district court because it's a lease option. And
so when was this? Like how soon after? So a year had gone by. How far after the year that had gone by when they stopped paying? Because I know there's a time period where you're trying to work with her.
Yeah.
So when did you go to court for that small claims court?
That wasn't until 3 months ago. So over 2 years have went by without her paying that I have been hiring attorneys to get us to court.
What took it so long? That's a long time.
Yeah, because attorneys will take your money and they will leave you high and dry.
So 2 years went by.
Yeah.
Where you're just saying that went through many attorneys, nothing was getting done. Oh, that's a long time.
That is a long time. That is a long time. Yep.
Is there what's the lesson in all that? Like what have you, is there something you could have done differently possibly?
Absolutely. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Mm.
If first of all, before you give an attorney your money, you want them to explain to you why you should hire them, right? Don't just trust what they say. They're gonna sell you on a dream and tell you that they're gonna get to work for you, and then they're gonna take your money and they're gonna leave your file sitting on their desk. Also, you don't need favors from attorneys because they're not going to act fast on favors. So some of that time I felt like was sitting with 2 attorneys that felt like they were doing me a favor, which actually they were hurting me every single hour of the day that they let this sit on their desk.
Just go ahead and pay them what they're worth, if they're worth it, and let's just get it going.
Get the fee, get a timeline of what they're going to do. And how long that they suspect that this could go on for. They should be able to give you a timeline and strategies of what they're going to do, paperwork that they're going to file. And once you see that and you agree on that, and then you also let them know that your standards are 72 hours for a reply.
Wow.
Those are my standards now.
Wow.
And I don't like 72 hours. I like no less than 48 hours, if immediate. Okay. Yeah. But I'm a patient person despite what people say about me. So let them know up front that your standard is 72 hours max reply time. Have them sign an agreement just like they're going to have you sign an agreement with them. Okay? Write your own agreement and say, these are my guidelines. If you want to work with me, if you want me to hire you, pay you the money that you want, I've signed yours, here's mine. Now let's get to work on this.
Okay, so we went through kind of like this long period of time where we're trying to figure out attorneys, and attorneys were just dropping the ball, right?
Constantly.
And then so it finally goes to small claims court. You're told by a judge that that's not the court you need to be in. So now we need to go into like a district court.
Yep. So the judge knew about this case before it got to her because nobody even told her that it was a lease option in court. She just asked, is this a lease option? Oh, we can't do those in this court. So then now we're waiting for a district court hearing, and they've still yet to give us a trial date.
Okay. Meanwhile, it's been 4 years.
Yep.
And this house right here, the tenant buyer is still in this house.
And 4 months since we went to small claims court, and still no court date.
Still no court date. And then, Melissa, now recently, this story, if it's not ridiculous enough, now it's taken like another it's taken a twist where it's almost like a real estate investor's worst nightmare at this point.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened next.
I'm just getting out of a long depression over all of this, to be honest with you. It's been very hard on me financially, emotionally, just to even keep my business going with stressing about this. I was charged with a felony for fraudulently obtaining property. I was arrested for that felony. A second charge in there was impersonating a real estate agent. So all of these false and malicious claims are being filed against me. I'm being, maliciously prosecuted and arrested. And still yet my criminal attorney has yet to get 100% of the evidence of all of this over to the DA. And that's currently going on. He is my third criminal attorney, and his last payment was $12,000. And he told me when we went to court that the DA still doesn't have all of the evidence, and he has no answers to me as to why. Yet again, these attorneys can kill you if you let them.
Yeah. But this is different than, obviously way different than, I think a lot of folks, if you're in real estate, especially in real estate for any kind of period of time, there are going to be lawsuits. You could get sued over this or that. And it could be, this is criminal now.
Yeah.
These are criminal charges that have been brought to you by the county. So So you were accused of not owning this house.
That's right.
Right, but you did own the house via
Yes.
a subject to.
That's correct.
So is there any lesson there? Is there anything that you would maybe share with folks that might be watching this who are doing a subject to transaction that maybe you might have done differently?
No, this was done perfectly by everybody on my team. We have a great rapport with the seller, to the fact that they both even wrote after their divorce. They've now since divorced, but they both wrote an affidavit explaining that they're happy that I came about, that I saved their credit, that I'm working this hard on not letting the county allow these people to steal their homes and force them into foreclosure. There is no reason why I'm still paying these mortgage payments, except for the fact that I don't want these people to get a foreclosure on their credit because of a decision that I made to move someone in here that was going to hurt us.
Right.
Really, that's why I'm still making the payment today.
Right. So where do we stand today? I know everything hasn't been resolved. We're still waiting on a court date to get into district court to try to remove the tenant. We've been doing that for quite some time. And then now there's these criminal charges. Where do we stand with that?
Yep. So in our last court hearing, Wednesday before last, my attorney spoke to the DA finally. I would have thought that it would have been his about third time speaking to the attorney, which is what he had told me. Turns out it was his first time speaking to the district attorney. He showed him one piece of evidence, and then the district attorney asked for a continuance in the case from the judge. It's stating that this was the first time that he had met with my attorney and that new evidence had been brought to light. This is not new evidence. This evidence is over 4 years old. So that's very interesting, and that is what's continuously happening here. Attorneys are lying, they're taking money, and they're making things really, really bad. The district attorney, as angry as I am with him, he's being defrauded as well, right? This evidence is being kept from him. Why doesn't he have all the evidence? I still don't understand that. But the DA did say that it looks like I did own the property and I did have the right to transfer ownership. So now they're going heavy on the impersonating a real estate agent charge.
So take me through that real quick. So what are they claiming that you did?
That's all I got for you. That's what they wrote on the charge.
Because in the state of North Carolina right now, there are no wholesaling laws.
No.
There's no laws against you can't assign contracts. So you're thinking, though, that it has to do with something like that?
I think it's just ignorance all the way around. People think that you have to be a real estate agent in this area to be able to make real estate happen. And they don't know that people like us exist, real estate problem solvers, right? That educate ourselves, and we spend money to educate ourselves. How much, how often? A lot, right? So they don't know the things that we know. It's just pure ignorance. Melissa,
how much does this cost you?
I would say upwards.
I'm not talking about your mental health, and because that alone,
man, millions that way.
Mentally trying to go through something like this, I can't imagine.
With 5 kids and already being shaky on the mental side from previous things that I've been through, it was like continuously stabbing somebody that's already been stabbed to death before, But
financially, how much does this cost?
We're looking at $120,000.
That includes attorney's fees, obviously the back rent that you've been paying the mortgage this whole time without collecting anything. I know you hired a private investigator.
I just hired a private investigator.
So take us through that. Why did you do that, and what are they investigating?
Oh man, they're investigating everything that's going on. I found myself in a position where I'm either going to lay down and let everybody kick me, or I'm going to have to stand up and fight. And hiring attorneys was not my way of fighting right now. It's going to have to be an attorney that's not local, right? I want answers. I want answers from this courthouse. I want answers from this police department. And I want answers from every attorney that's taken my money. So I hired a very expensive private investigator who has 30 years of experience in law enforcement himself, and has been tracking people down for 40 years. So he's working on a lot.
Well, guys, we're going to follow up with Melissa here in the coming months just to try to see if there's any resolution to what's going on. But I definitely wanted to share her story with you guys because I do subject to transactions. I know a lot of y'all do, or at least you've heard of it, and it's something you might want to do in the future. So maybe it's just one more thing. I know Melissa, you had mentioned in a previous video that we did. By the way, I'm going to link that up. Make sure if you haven't seen part 1 with Melissa, make sure you watch that. But she had told us in part 1 of this video that one of the things that you would have done differently, if anything, is to make sure you had built your team before you start doing some of these. And I couldn't agree more, is to make sure you actually have attorneys who understand lease options and could litigate if they had to, understand subject to, and could litigate if they had to. Having those people, having those conversations with those attorneys before something like this would happen. But really, it doesn't sound like there's much else you could have done differently.
No, man, no. I could have not been so nice and extended the lease option and went to war immediately. That's not the kind of person that I want to be in this business.
And that's you know, costly. Obviously, it ended up being costly anyway. But you want to try to work with someone as much as possible.
You do, and until they're cutting your throat while they're doing it.
For sure.
Now, I'll say this in the ending. And what I mean by get your team together before you need them, I'm not new to this. If I had to guess, this subject 2 was done 4 years ago. This was probably the 50th or 60th subject 2 I had done by that point. I'm now done 100 more. I wasn't new to this, okay? But I had not put the effort into finding the attorneys that can act quickly. And then you also just hit the nail on the head. Not just a real estate attorney who can process your deals, but they have to be able to litigate. And add that in there. Add that in there, because you're going to reach out to these attorneys, and you're going to say, hey, this, and this. Oh, I don't litigate. You need a litigation attorney for that. And that's very real, and that's where we are.
Guys, I appreciate y'all watching this. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your story. Really do appreciate that. And we obviously are hoping that everything, you know, ends well for you, and we'll definitely update y'all as a resolution comes to light.
We'll win.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
All right, see y'all in the next one.